What's going on, guys? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome back to the stock market outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. As always, we're going to run through the major indexes, talk about the overall market conditions, go through a few key stocks, and at the very end, I'll give you my overall take on the current market health and also what to look out for next week. And if you do enjoy my analysis at any time, please go ahead and take just a few seconds and leave me a like down below in the video. Helps me out immensely. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one every single week, including tutorials as well as interviews with top traders. With that said, let's dive right in and start with the analysis of the Nasdaq composite. First things first, you can see this day right here stands out immensely. This was after Powell spoke and kind of, had some suggestions that they wouldn't be quite as aggressive with raising rates. Obviously, the overall picture hasn't changed too much, but just that, subtle shift here where they could be moderating a little bit definitely encouraged the market to rally strongly. And we had a beautiful push up here right towards the top of this range. And you can see, the previous day we had undercut that 21 EMA. Things, especially with the leaders, were looking a little bit more dire. A lot of them lost their 21 EMAs as well, or the bottoms of ranges. But just that one day can make a huge difference. And what's even more encouraging than just the strong price action where we closed right at the top of the trading range, you can see we had really strong volume accompanying that. So yeah, definitely a lot of positive signs here. And just in the charts themselves of the leaders, you'll see that that day stands out immensely. And the rest of the week as well, we've pretty much consolidated that move, which I take as extremely constructive. And especially this Friday where we had a gap down open, we rallied strongly. And not only were the actions of the market indexes themselves very strong, finishing near highs, but also the market leaders held up really, really well. And we'll get into that later on in the video. So, so far, so good. Looking at a 60-minute chart, you can see the strong push breaking through this range right after that news event came out. And now we're right near the top of this area. We pushed through it, but weren't quite able to hold it. And you can see the rally off the lows today, pretty much from the very start of the day and finishing right near those highs. Definitely constructive action. And we'll see if we can maybe consolidate a little bit more before really breaking out of this range and starting, a fresh move upwards. Now going back to the daily chart, you can see looking at the past, these rallies have taken place and lasted a few weeks. We're now kind of, especially on the Nasdaq, lagging a little bit, but we've kind of started this pretty much on the 13th, and this will be more clear, and I'll talk a little bit more about that going over to the chart of the S&P 500. But overall, we're back above a rising 21 EMA, 50 SMA. We're still below a declining 200-day moving average, and if you draw this trend line, as you'll see with most of the indexes, we're kind of approaching that level, which could be a potential spot of resistance that we'll have to watch out for. But so far, constructive action, and good to see us stick above that 21 EMA and reclaim it so strongly. Moving on over to the S&P 500. You can see we're right at that 200 SMA. It looked like we were maybe going to fail it today with that gap down, but we rallied strongly just like the Nasdaq. And we're once again right close to this downward trend line. So a lot of eyes are pretty much on this line, so keep that in mind. I'd love to see maybe one more inside day, maybe even a week of sideways action right in this area, and then a push through here, forming another higher low. That would be very impressive. But we'll have to see what happens first at that level. But we're back above that 21 EMA. Never actually lost it on this index, and we're above a rising 50 SMA. So this is definitely leading versus the Nasdaq. And you can see we've pretty much gone a similar length as to these previous rallies. So that is something to keep in mind. I think, we're about 15%, 16, 17% off these lows. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. And, the action of the leaders is extremely promising. Probably the most promising it's been all year in terms of non-oil and gas, non-biotech areas of the market. So we'll have to see what happens and if this can really stick and push above that 200 SMA, which has been resistance, and get above this key trend line. Also bringing up the IWM, the Russell 2000 index, you can see we are also right at that key level we just pushed through. And once again, really nice action on this Wednesday right here and on this Friday, really showing that there is a little bit of a bid here going on in the small caps. So good to see us push through here above the 200 SMA, and we're back above a rising 21 EMA and 50 SMA. So within those timeframes, the trend is up, which is definitely a good sign for growth stock investors. Looking at the IWO, which is kind of the growth side specifically, pretty similar picture above that 200 SMA, 21 EMA, and 50 SMA. Still a lot of work to do to get through this overhead supply. You've got a big range here, a big line here. So we'll have to see how we deal with that. But even if the indexes become really choppy and kind of, work back and forth above the moving averages. Individual stocks will be breaking out and acting well, and we're looking for those leaders. And we'll talk about a few names later on in this video. And tomorrow I'll post an entire video talking about what I view the top leadership at this moment. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. Moving on to the FFTY. This has been hit really hard, still struggling with the 50 SMA. Nothing's really changed when it comes to this index. And going over to ARK as well, still acting pretty negative, although a little bit stronger. You can see we had a nice push through on that day. We're back above that 50 SMA, but things are so compressed because of this large downtrend. So overall, going back to the S&P 500 in terms of the major indexes, we continue to form higher lows and respect that 21 EMA, and we're back above that 200 SMA. So things are looking good. And more importantly than that, the action of the individual stocks and the leadership is continuing to broaden. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, let's run through the mega caps, starting with Tesla. Looking at this chart, definitely negative, but showing a little bit of signs here. We're back above that 21 EMA, which is flattening, but we remain below a declining 50 and 200 SMA. Going to Google, we're back above that 21 EMA as well, forming a potential higher low right here and constructive action, but you can see we remain below that 200 SMA, bringing up Meta. Similar picture above that 50 SMA. There's definitely a spot for short-term traders through this type of flag here, push off the bottom, but we're running into this gap low here. So we'll have to see how it acts versus that level. And we remain below a longer term 200-day moving average, which is in a downtrend. And bringing up Amazon, you can see that this has a lot of work to do, still in a stage 4 decline, below declining 21, 50, and 200 SMA. And lastly, let's talk about Apple. You can see that this is a little bit better, just kind of choppy here above the 21 and the 50, although the 50 is declining and we're below that 200 SMA. So overall, in terms of the mega caps, these aren't acting great, but that's where the kind of strength is, showing up a little bit more than the indexes, because we're seeing that these mega caps are getting weighed down, and that's weighing down the indexes as a result. So also, let's take a look at NVIDIA. The semiconductors have been the strongest of the kind of mega cap areas here. This has been acting well above a rising 21 EMA, but we're still below that declining 200 SMA, but a nice action on this Wednesday. Also bringing up AMD, you can see similarly, this is above a rising 21 EMA. Looks like the 50 SMA is just barely curling upwards, but we're still in a longer term downtrend. So in terms of those mega caps, still a lot of work to do, but definitely there's plenty of opportunity in the smaller cap names. A lot of them were forming short-term flags and acted really well this week, even though the indexes, suffered a gap down today, negative action earlier in the week. They rallied strongly on this day and showed very, very strong action. So let's go ahead and run through my previous focus list and just dive right through a few of these names. So AC/DC, still nothing much to do here, consolidating right near these IPO highs. This could be, potentially actionable next week, although it's a little bit choppier than some names, but we'll have to see how it acts versus this downward trend line. And I'd love to see it get back above that 20 EMA, a little bit of rejection from that line here on this Thursday. Amgen still flagging out, definitely potentially actionable next week, holding that 21 EMA and very constructive action. Very tight day today as well, which is definitely, a potential sign that this could be ready to go. So we'll be watching for a big move, big volume move through this line next week. Calix, one of the ones that was flagging out sideways, nice move on this day, the 30th, and then constructive action on Thursday, closing well, and nice action today as well, finishing right near the highs for the week. Dexcom similarly forming a flag, pushed out here on this day, and constructive action the rest of the week. There's a lot of charts that look exactly like this. EMPH as well. We finally got that breakout here through these highs, and you can see that this started actually with an oops reversal. We opened right near the low, pushed through the prior day's low, and this went all the way outside day and broke out through this nice base right here. And solar is one of the leadership groups in my opinion. GFS, still a little bit of work to do, so we'll have to see whether the semis really start becoming a leadership group, but still I think a stock to watch, and how it acts versus this pivot will be crucial. Can we regain that 21 EMA and get back above this level shortly? That would be great, but maybe this needs to base out for a week or two and form out another consolidation here before pushing out. Medpace, this was a stock that was acting really promising, but then lost the lows of this prior range, but we did have a big upside reversal, and we're kind of back within that range, so nothing much to do here. Still chopping around. You've got this very kind of vertical downward trend line, but I love to see this kind of base out and form some higher lows here and form some pivots later on within the base and consolidation. Pod, similar to Dexcom, nice short-term flag here, push out here on this day, and nice constructive action back above that 300 level. SANM, acting really well. Upside reversal outside day here on that day, the 30th, and holding that 21 EMA, and very nice action Thursday and Friday. Next up, we've got Shoals, another solar name, and unfortunately we had some negative news hits here on this day. I believe there's a secondary as well as the CEO leaving, which is definitely a potential red flag. So we had a nice gap down and we held that 50 SMA, but I'd be focused on the other names within this group. No reason to really trade this until it really proves itself and fills that gap once again, gets back above that 21 EMA. UTHR, nice push through the short-term flag right here, as well as kind of this horizontal level. Beautiful breakout on this day, and then constructive action Thursday and Friday. And that's pretty much it for, the names that were on my focus list. Also, definitely some strong action from my wider list. ON has been acting well. Docs pushed up as well. And also names like A and F had nice pushes from their short-term consolidations. Nice outside day here on this Friday. So definitely a lot of constructive action kind of across the board. And I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into my screens this weekend and finding those opportunities either for the next week or after we get maybe a short-term pullback, really trying to get into those leadership names and get the most out of this potential rally. But overall, we've got constructive action from potential leadership names as well as the market indexes, and we'll just have to see what lies in store for us next week. So thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on this market. What stocks are you watching closely, and what do you think about the overall market conditions? And with that, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.